my thought is, and it probably rubs people the wrong way, and it's probably the wrong answer that people want to hear is I'm not raising black children. I'm raising children. I'm not raising black men. I'm raising men. And whether you are black or you are white, no matter what race that you are.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Adopted Gals podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Today's going to be an interesting topic. This is a topic that's kind of been going viral because there was a popular UFC fighter who said something along the lines of, I don't see color.
Yeah. So this is a very hot topic, as race always is a very hot topic. You know, on this channel, we always talk about race and how that ties with, adoption, transracial adoption. And so today we're talking about this UFC fighter, Michael Chandler, who he actually ended up adopting him and his wife adopted two Black children. Now, it was a domestic adoption, so it was in the United States. And he, in this interview that we're going to be kind of like reacting to, he basically talked about what the experience has been like adopting two children that were of a different color, what some of the difficult conversations he's, kind of had with his children. And overall, I would say it was a really, really great conversation. The man had a lot of amazing insight. And to me, I think he's well-rounded in regards to the reality of adopting children that don't look anything like him. And, from what we heard, me and Fatma said, the videos that were going viral of, people reacting to his video were, people like to exaggerate in one regard or another. So we felt like they didn't necessarily put the conversation and him and his experience and thoughts in the best light. And so we want to speak on that.
Yeah, we wanted to talk about it because one, it's a hot topic and it's something that needs to be discussed. So in the beginning, like when it was going viral all over TikTok and people just kept using the term, I don't see color. And the reason why he went viral is because he said something along the lines of, because he has him and his wife adopted two Black boys. And he said, I'm not raising my children as Black men. I'm just raising my children as men, which kind of like twisted people's minds and, Black people. And a lot of the times when people get upset over that, it's not simply because why would you say that? Why do you, why did you adopt Black children? No, there's something that stems from the idea when white people or just people of non-Black people say, I don't see color. It can be very problematic to Black people because when you say that and you're raising a Black child, you cannot have a mindset like that because what you're potentially doing, you're going to harm your kid in a way that you may not necessarily think it's harmful because you do need to see who they are. They're Black children. They're going to face certain things. They're going to go through certain things. And you as a parent needs to learn and have the tools. So when your child faces racism, whether it's at school or out and about, you need to know how to help them when they come to you and you know how to help them. And in that conversation, the little snippet that was going around, of course, I was like triggered too. I'm like, why would he say that? That's weird. So I went back and watched the entire interview, and which is a good thing. Like whenever you see something going, viral, whether it's an interview, like take the time to go out to watch the actual interview because some people take things out of context and just run with it. And even though, yes, he did say, I'm not raising my children as Black men and just children, but in that interview, he's well aware that he is raising Black children and that he has to learn, he has to educate himself on that. And I think where he just went wrong was just keep saying that. So it's like, which is it? Like, you gotta have to kind of, stop saying that. But he's like, well, I say that because that's just how I feel, which also goes back into the idea of adoption and how adopted parents can sometimes put forth what they think. That's what they want to think. It's like, I get that's how you want to think, but you also have to look at the big picture. But overall, in general, I just think in the video, he understood like he's raising Black children. And it wasn't like anything that should have been, kind of made into a big deal because he understood. And he seemed like such a good father. He seemed like he loves his children. Like the way he talks about them, I mean,
Mm,
that's like a really good adoption ideal. Like if I was, if I was to choose how people should
mhm,
be when they're adopting Black children, that's the
mhm.
kind of mindset and the way he talked about them, like they're his kids. And I'm like, it was great. It was a great interview. And I don't think he's going to harm those children. Like, I don't think so. Like when you watch the interview, it does not come off as that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanna pick apart, like, some things that stood out to me from the
Mm-hmm.
interview. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, one of the reasons why I don't really have a problem with what he said, even in regards to the "I don't see color," is one thing he said that really stuck out, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense," was he said something in the line of, "There are certain things about being a human that transcends skin color."
Mm-hmm.
And that is a fact, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
A white person can raise a Black person to be an amazing, incredible, adult, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is loved and cherished. And because there's a lot of values that are outside of skin color, right? That are outside of
Mm-hmm.
race that,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think should be just as valued, if not more valued, than just focusing on the racial aspect. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, when we talk about race, a lot of times we are focusing on the negative aspects of why, um, a white person should focus on the skin colors because, well, when they go outside, they might get shot up or they have a fear that they might get pulled over by the cops. And how's
Mm-hmm.
that conversation going to go? It's always on very negative standpoint a lot of times, right? That's where people automatically want to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, raising a healthy child that's confident, that's smart, that has a lot of self-esteem, high self-esteem, is so much more important than just focusing on just how can we, um, like, almost like there's a lot of fear mongering sometimes when it comes to the race conversation. And not saying that you shouldn't prepare your child for those type of conversations, but I guess in that comment that he said about like, values and things that transcend like skin color, it just really hit home for me. And one thing that he also said as well that was like, okay, like I can see where his mind is at. And I feel like my
Mm-hmm.
parents had this type of mentality too. One thing about white people, that I have observed being in both white spaces and Black spaces,
Mm-hmm.
especially as an adoptee that was living in a white household, is that a lot of white people, and I think a huge part of it is because of privilege and how the world identifies white people, they
Mm-hmm.
do have this mentality of anything and everything I want, I can make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's no limit. And
Mm-hmm.
so one thing he really wants to instill in his children is that it doesn't matter what skin color you are. It doesn't matter who, like your upbringing, your background. We are going to raise you up to know in your head and your heart that you can do any and everything that you want to accomplish. And I think that is one thing that I see like with my Black friends, my, Black community is whenever they want to achieve a lot,
Mm-hmm.
there's always this limit of, oh, I can't do it because of the government, because of the system, because of white people or whatever, or they put a lot of limits on themselves and they disqualify themselves before they even try. And I think for me, one thing my mentor told me when I was young, because I would just talk and I'd be like, oh yeah, I can do that. I wouldn't even question anything. I'd be like, if I want to do this, if I want to become a model, I can do it. Why would I not? If I want to, start a business, I can do that, whatever. And he was like, listen, one thing I can
Mm-hmm.
give props to your adoptive family for is the fact that they instilled in you that you can pretty much do anything you want because that's really powerful. You need that to be able to survive and to do good in this earth. And so I really like that he has that
Yeah.
mentality, and I really do think that does come with white privilege. I will say that because they've been
Yeah.
told and shown by the world that they can accomplish anything and they can do anything
Yeah.
that they put their mind to.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from in that idea that you should view the world where you can do that. And I think
Mhm.
some white Black people do take that mentality where some of them don't try. But I also think that whole idea of, as your Black child, you're telling me you can do whatever you want. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. And I think the reason why Black people are kind of reserved when it comes to them wanting to try is because it's systematic. Like there's proof that you can try, but there are systems and places that will stop you, and
Yeah,
that very much
I
does exist. So that's
100%
why
agree.
so that's why some Black people kind of,
And I'm
because
not saying that in a way, I'm not saying that in a way to um, act like I don't know and I don't have any awareness of the
no,
limits of,
no, I
what's
know
out
that. I
there.
just want to make sure people understood a little more. So
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, when even as a white person, or even as just any person, when you have the mentality that you can do anything you want, that doesn't mean that there's no blockages. That doesn't mean that there's no challenges. That doesn't mean that people aren't going to be try to get in your way, or your thought processes or your stories or your limiting beliefs aren't going to get in your way. That's a
no,
whole part of
that's not what I'm talking about. How I'm talking about the racism and like how there's systems in place that keep Black people from actually excelling all the way to the top. Even if you try, like you do have to
no, I
like
understand.
put
I
harder.
understand.
What I'm talking
I
about.
understand, like as a large group and as a large whole, yes, it can be harder to get to those top places. But I guess what I'm saying is that a lot of times people just automatically like jump to why I can't do it versus, okay,
Hmm.
why can I do it? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, um, I get the racism aspect. I get maybe that not every single Black person is going to become CEO or director or whatever position. You see what
Hmm.
I'm saying? But it's like, I've actually had conversations with Black people where they're like, well, I can't do that. Like white folks are going to be all up in my business and this and that.
Yeah, and that's not a good mindset to have.
And it's
No,
like,
of course.
it's
Yeah.
disturbing to me, and that's what I'm saying. Yes, it has been privileged because, being in an adoptive family with white parents, they've instilled in me that I can do anything that I want
Hmm.
because from their perspective, they can, because yes, they do have more privileges and whatnot. But I guess what I'm saying is that, like, it doesn't matter what race you are at the end of the day. Anyways, like
Hmm.
you're still gonna have challenges and challenges
Hmm.
that you have to overcome to do anything, accomplish anything. Yes, Black
Yeah.
people, yeah, and especially in certain positions, if you want to get
Hmm.
really high up there, race is gonna become more of an aspect, right? Because there's people's biases and all of that. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, we can still make things happen. You know what I mean?
You're saying still try.
I'm saying still try and know, because if this guy's going to be teaching his children, you can do anything, right? He's going to
Hmm.
know, okay, but you're Black. Yes, there's going to be some people who are just not going to want to fuck with you because you're Black or whatever, or they might have their own biases, but still
Hmm.
try, still find
Yeah.
different ways, find different angles and whatnot. And so I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I like that instillment that he's trying to have in with his children, versus if you're
Hmm.
just raised in a Black community and household, your family members have that limiting belief, so they're going to put that on you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's
Hmm.
that's where you're coming from and starting from. So it's not even that you can't even complete the race. You don't even want to go to the race because everyone around you supports this idea that you can't do
Yeah.
it. You know what I'm saying? And so he's starting from the point of, you can do it, but when you go in there, you're going to find out that it's going to be hard. There's going to be a lot of challenges, especially because of your skin or whatever. But
Hmm.
start from the point that you can accomplish it. You can get it done. So that's what I was
Hmm.
saying I like about that. But yeah, I don't know why people are overreacting with this dude, because it's just
I
like,
yeah. I mean, I
it's
do understand why they are overreacting, because he did use some words like, I'm not raising Black children, I'm raising children. Which is kind of like, no. But then he, again, I feel like if people watch it, the whole interview, like I don't think he really meant
he
it like that.
explains himself.
But
He
yeah,
thoroughly explains himself.
but I see why some Black people do. I understand why they put limiting beliefs on them, because think about it, like you've seen other people do that, like they work themselves to try and get there. So some people are like, why would I try that? Why would I put myself through that? Like
Hmm.
I've accepted, for me, like if I want something, I want to, go and if I want it. And of course I'm gonna still try. And I've also, for myself, and I'm like, but I'm gonna work for it. If I get it, I get it. But I'm also not gonna kill myself to do it,
No,
because I
absolutely not. No.
just, that's hurting me. And I think so. I understand why some Black people do it, but I get it. I get what you're saying. Like, yes, still try and do instill those values in your children. And we're both lucky where we are, both of our white parents were like, you can do whatever you want. And which is good to do for children, period. Let them know. And I also think when people say, now hopping into the comments that were made in our last video, the last video that we had an interviewee, her name was Julie, and in the comments, she was talking about how her parents, her dad said, oh, I'm not raising my daughters to be Black women. And which is weird because they are Black women. Like you have to see that there are Black women. That's weird. Like, what are you talking about? So when people use that and say, I don't see color, you are eliminating who these people are. You're erasing who they are, which is weird because they're Black. Like you can't, there's no way around it. And then somebody in the comments said, well, I understand where he's coming from. And then they took it into the racism aspect of it, of, oh, well, Black people, they started listing all these, nasty stereotypes about Black people, they're ghetto and all that stuff. So when a lot of Black people when people say, I don't see color, sometimes they tend to think what that person said. And some people who also say, I don't see color, they're not coming from a place of harm. They're trying to make it, a better world for everybody. Some of them, when they say it. So it's hard to tell who's sincere versus somebody who's racist. And I think a lot of the times it's racism. So they left that comment. And so we wanted to talk about that. And the idea of I don't see color is not necessarily the best phrase to use. And that don't be saying that when you're a white person, Black children, because you're erasing their identity and who they are. They're not going to feel comfortable in the home. They're not going to feel seen. And you want your children to be seen. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's where that also comes from.
Yeah. And I think it's always good to, if someone does say that to you in real life or even online, question them. What do you mean by that? How explain yourself, right? Because they might have a good explanation. You know what I'm saying? But this guy was just being plain ignorant. And the funny thing is that all of the people that were on, it was me, Emily, our Fatmata, and Julie, and we're all African. And so in the comment, the man or woman, whoever they are, they said, well, I wouldn't raise my child to be Black. And then he was like, and African Americans, very specifically targeting African Americans, and then are Black, ghetto, loud, all this disgusting stuff. And it's like, well, first of all, everyone who's on the podcast is African. So you're kind of just like boxing all Black people into the same, category and of the lowest, stereotypes, the lowest of the barrel of, how quote unquote Black people are. And so obviously, if you ask someone plain and simple, what do you mean by that? Or how so? They're going to show themselves, and then you can make that, connection. Okay, this person really is just racist, or they don't really, they're ignorant, or they don't even care, or they just like to hear themselves talk, right? Versus someone else who's able to explain, hey, listen, I believe in raising my child to be respectful. I believe, not saying that African Americans are not respectful, but just the values of what it takes to raise a child, loving, respectful, empowered, high confident, and all of that. And none of those characteristics have to do with color. You see what I'm saying? Those are characteristics you would want someone who is Black, white, Hispanic, whatever to have, right? So that's why I liked his answer about transcending skin color, because that is it just hit home for me. And if someone else is just focusing on, well, I don't want to raise them to be like this and this, and it's all about don't want to because of this, and how Black people is obviously, they're racist, that they, couldn't care less about seeing outside of themselves.
Yeah, and sometimes going back to the comments that guy was making that were very stereotypical, like some white people think some of the stuff that Black people do that they see ghetto, which is not ghetto. Like some white people will see like Black people at the park having a barbecue with the music on, enjoying each other. They would see that as ghetto. So if you're going to have that mindset, I don't want to raise my children to be Black, and then you think of that, and that's part of the culture. Like, like being Sierra Leonean, there's certain cultural things that we had that we liked. So if you were to see like, oh, it's ghetto, you're erasing that part of us. That's something that we like. So if they like it, introduce them to it. That's part of, their culture, like the cultural background. Like, I don't care if you were a baby when you were adopted as a Black child into a white family. Like, cultural is in your blood. Who you are, it can be in your blood. It just, that's how it is. And it makes, when kids want to be part of their culture, it makes them feel seen. It makes them feel loved and heard and understood. And if you are the parent, you're giving leeway for your child to experience that. They're gonna love you even more. They're gonna create a deeper bond with you and be like, wow, yes, you are my parent. Yeah, we don't look alike, but you also are taking the time to understand me and to introduce me to who I am. And thank you for doing that. It's honestly as simple as that.
You're so right, Fatmata. And, one of the ways that I feel like this guy was able to kind of show that him and his wife were taking the time to educate themselves is just like doing things that we always talk about on this channel, which is putting yourself in more diverse environments, right? Now, mind you, they lived, I think it was like not Arkansas, it was like Tennessee or something, Nashville or something like that. I don't know. They do live more rural area and predominantly white, but this is what we're saying. Like, there's a middle ground, right? You don't always have to go extreme and move to a completely different state. So they didn't necessarily do that. They do have a life. They do have family out there. But what are some steps that you can do in between, right? What about the school that the kids are going to go to? Try to find a more diverse school. And so when they picked out schools, they actually picked out the school that had more Black people that looked like the children, so that they're not always just the outcasts and just different, from the rest of the group. So I really like that. And it seems like, like he was saying, the wife wanted to adopt when she was like 13, 14 years old. I have a friend who was just like that. Like, she was just one of those people that like was exceptional. She wanted to love people and care for people since she was a very, very young child. Right. And, she wanted to be like a doctor and like help people. And now she's like grown up. She moved to South Africa. She has like a Black boyfriend who she loves very much. I just knew that was like in her blood. Like, that's just how God made her. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think it was necessarily race. Like, she's trying to, I don't know, be seen good as like good necessarily. Just so, for example, like we always talk about like adopting through church or whatever, which it seems like this couple is very religious. He brings up God a lot and how it was meant to be. God made it for him to adopt and have a family this way. Which we're always like kind of wary about sometimes, right? But to me, it's like, it's fine for you to want to do good for the world as long as you're educating yourself, putting yourself in positions where you have to diversify, which this couple is. They're even making friends that are not necessarily of their color and stuff like that. So I am okay. I think that's cool.
Yeah, me too. I'm completely okay with the guy too. It seems like him and his wife, they understand. They're doing the stuff that we talk about. And also when it comes to like moving yourself or moving your family to a more diverse area, like even if you feel a little uncomfortable around like Black people, like stay, try to move next to a city that's diverse. So you can have like your little white community where you feel comfortable, but also have like a little, diverse community next to you where you can kind of like cross over, what I mean? That makes sense. Where you can take your kids to hair salon or, restaurants that they like an African restaurant, like be next to something. Be next to something.
Exactly. Be next to something. That's good.
Because instead of just straight up everywhere, be next to something.
That's really good.
I get it, because we still can empathize. Yeah, we still can empathize and like, and what if you like our families, they have their own birth children and their life rooted where they were. So it's hard to uproot yourself for your entire family for this one child when you also have other kids to think about, which is understandable. And we're just saying, like, just be next to something.
Be next to something. Diversify your group of friends, So this guy, I would say kudos to him and his family. And
Yeah.
you know, they're going to have their own set of challenges. And, you know, it seems like they're
Mm-hmm.
willing to put enough thought and effort into
Mm-hmm.
making it work out. So good for them. And
Yeah.
honestly, I just wish there was more adoptive parents that were like
Yeah.
that and gave that kind of experience
I mean,
and love.
yeah.
That's what we talk about. You know, when we always say love is not enough, it's not. But like with the amount of love that he's kind of portraying for his children and also the education awareness, like that's
Yeah.
a recipe for success to me. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Always going to get it right. Like, don't get me wrong. They're probably going to say some ignorant things to their
Mm-hmm.
children, but that's also like that just kind of comes with the territory, right? When you adopt someone
Yeah.
that's completely different culture, you're not always sensitive to what you're not fully aware, because there's a lot of non-verbal
Mm-hmm.
things that is incorporated in culture, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to know everything because they're not Black, they're not of that culture, so they're going to say some things that it's like, okay, let me just
Mm-hmm.
side eye you. But as long as you're not coming from a bad place, and if the children come to them and they're like, yo, listen, what you did or said or whatever, that was kind of messed up, and here's why, and
Yeah.
they're open to hearing that, because a lot of times these white folks are not. But if you're open to hearing that and not personalizing it, then I feel like you're in for a good relationship.
Yeah. And he seems like he loves his children. He looks like he'll do anything for them. So he's
Yeah.
fine. I
Yeah.
don't have anything else to add. Do you?
No, just whoever made that stupid ass comment on our video. Just know this video was made for you. So hopefully, I mean, I'm not here to try to change anybody's mind, but
Yeah.
hopefully the people who are, you know,
Yeah.
just wanting to get educated, y'all can learn something from this. So
Right. And before we go, if you are an adoptee that wants to tell your story, please don't email us. Let us know. We would love to have you on to tell your story. Like, it's a very open conversation just like this. And you don't have to share anything that you don't want to share at all. So just let us know. Email us and keep in touch. And also, thank you guys so much. We've reached 300 subscribers. We are so excited.
Yay.
Thank you so much, you guys, for subscribing and being part of our channel. We appreciate it and we love you so much. Don't forget to send this video to a friend, share, like, comment. We would love to hear your thoughts. So till next time. Bye.
Bye.